Good morning and welcome everybody to the launching ceremony of Peer Education 101 for us by us, strengthening the CSE ecosystem in Bangladesh, organized by Kotha, founded in 2016. Kotha is a feminist organization committed to fight against the culture of gender-based violence through primary intervention. We work at the intersection of education policy advocacy, youth perspective research, and arts. And as you all know, PPRC is a Dhaka-based leading policy research center. We believe that comprehensive sexuality education, or CSE, that focuses on unlearning stereotypes, changing mindsets, and modeling good behavior will tackle the root causes and is thus an effective long-term solution to gender-based violence. We are very excited to be introducing our CSE Peer Education Training Manual, Peer Education 101 for us by us, one of the ShareNet International Small Grants winners 2020, jointly developed by Kotha and PPRC. Through this event, we want to energize the conversation around CSE in Bangladesh while keeping the young people at the heart of the conversation. We are very honored to have with us three leading policymakers, Dr. Hossain Zillur Rahman, Executive Chairman, PPRC, Shaheen Alam, Executive Director, Manusher Jonno Foundation, and Asa Torkelsson, Representative of Bangladesh, Unfpa. We will also be joined by a group of discussants who will be bringing in a wealth of knowledge, as well as our valued students. I would like to express my hearty gratitude to everyone that has joined us today. Thank you very much. And this event is live on our Kotha Facebook page. Now, without any further ado, we will start with our founder and director of Kotha, Hossain Zillur, who will share with us her journey of popularizing CSE and tackling last mile challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Good morning to everybody. I'm so happy to see so many of the people that we've looked up to and worked with over the past couple of years, and a lot of our peers as well. Thank you, and my heartiest gratitudes for joining us here today. My name is Hossain Zillur, as Aisha has mentioned, and I will start off by just taking a couple of minutes and talking about our work in popularizing comprehensive sex ed and some of the last mile challenges, just to set the tone for today's conversation. Okay. I will be mindful of my time. Aisha, please let me know if I go over. And with this, I will also take the opportunity to remind everybody else to please also stick to their designated time. So today, even though this is a book launch of Kotha's Peer Education Training Manual, we also wanted to take this opportunity to re-energize the conversation around CSE in Bangladesh. To that end, I wanted to talk about three specific areas that I think, and we believe here at Kotha, are really important for CSE advocacy. First off, and I've spoken about this in multiple areas where we've discussed CSE, whether it's roundtables or policy discussions, that CSE's conversation needs to be about more than reproductive health. It needs to be more than about our bodies and biology, although that is extremely important, but we really need to expand that conversation and include key issues such as consent, healthy relationship, identities of masculinity, femininity, gender equality, and inequality. And all of those are extremely crucial if we really want CSE to do the job that we want it to do. So I think that is the very first point that I would like to make, that we need to, the way that we discuss CSE and the spaces in which we discuss CSE has to be broadened a little bit. Second would be framing CSE as a solution to gender-based violence. As Aisha mentioned, Kotha is a feminist organization tackling root causes of gender-based violence. And one of our core areas of work is CSE because we really believe this is a long-term solution to this issue. On the next slide, I just wanted to show everybody how this framing kind of really helped bring CSE into the national focus last year during the nationwide anti-rape protests. So I have here a few of the demands that were put forward during those protests by Rape Law Reform Coalition and Feminists Across Generations, both of which called for comprehensive sexuality education or consent education, because that was seen as a crucial part of advocating for the end of gender-based violence. And it really is, I think, the third point that I have here, that of course the fight for young people's sexual right is the main goal, but it is way too controversial for us in Bangladesh at this moment. What we've seen when we're dealing with schools, when we're talking to parents, or even last year when we were talking about this issue as a national demand to fight for gender-based violence, that people were way more receptive when we framed it as a solution for gender-based violence, because there is consensus there that there needs to be something urgently done to address the prevalence of gender-based violence in Bangladesh. I did also include a photo, which is a graffiti on one of the schools here in Dhanmondi done by high school students this year, which says "Make sex education compulsory." And I don't think any of us here could have imagined we'd be seeing that walking down the streets of Dhaka a couple of years ago. So I think that really goes to show the role that this has played in popularizing just CSE as a household conversation amongst young people, amongst parents, and even with schools. Here, I'll also just quickly mention that one of the Feminists Across Generations also put out a petition, which I helped to draft, which actually helped start conversation in multiple schools around Bangladesh, where students just mobilized their own communities and took these demands for comprehensive sex ed to their teachers. We haven't seen schools commit yet, but I think the conversation that has been started has been really, really important. So I just wanted to kind of talk about the advocacy part there, and now move on to some last mile challenges, which is really at the core of today's conversation. I hope I'm not going over time. All right, just very quickly, Bangladesh, surprisingly, for the type of society that we are, has really good policies when it comes to comprehensive sex ed. I'm sure all experts here will know, and even for others who have joined us, that our national adolescent health strategy advocates and has very clear guidelines and strategic objectives, which call for comprehensive sex ed at all levels in our education system. We also have a good body of research that sheds light on the questions and concerns adolescents have when it comes to these issues and these conversations. And we also have some content already built around comprehensive sex ed. Unfpa has done great work with the government on this, but I think what is missing is implementation. And if our ultimate goal is really to prioritize and help young people, I don't think we can look at these implementation challenges as a small component of the work that we've all taken on. I think it really has to be given more priority. And the last mile challenges that we'll be going into more later on in the conversation, I really want everybody to understand that these aren't just some small sideline issues that we can address when we've addressed everything else. It's at the very core of comprehensive sex ed and very core of young people's right to this education, and also at the core of our work against gender-based violence. I think priority issues such as trust, confidentiality that keep coming up over and over again do not actually get prioritized when we're designing program interventions, and that's something that we need to look into. And the existing communication barriers that exist between traditional teacher-student relationships in our country because of the culture that we have also is a very big challenge that we've seen. It's a well-documented last mile challenge, as you will all know, when it comes to SRHR education delivery. And I think the training of educators has not gotten priority much at all. We've mostly seen very short 1 to 2 day training programs that don't really help teachers who carry biases to unlearn those biases before they go in to teach young people. So so these last mile challenges in comprehensive sexuality education really need to be given the weight and the priority if we are going to be realistic about how we want to address these issues. And yeah, and we will be hearing more about how the work that we've been doing kind of tries to address some of these challenges and see what we can take away from that. So I did want to keep mine very short. I don't know if I went over time. And before I give it back to Aisha, I just want to take this opportunity to thank my team. Every single one of them has put in so much hard work over the last couple of months to put this booklet together. And I think it's an amazing resource that so many people will find helpful. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. I think your dedication to the cause, all the hard work and effort you've put in will definitely be paid off. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Umama. Now we will be moving on to Nawal and Arya, who will be presenting their case study on Kotha at School program. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Really nice to meet you today. Right. So my name is Nawal Naz Tariq. I'm a member of the Peer Educator team. I'm currently being trained. And with me will be presenting Arya. So Arya is going to start off. So Arya, I hope.
Hi, I'm Arya. I'm a student at Sunbeams as well as research and writing at Kotha. And me and Nawal are going to be going into a case study of Kotha at School. So firstly, what is Kotha at School? Kotha at School is Bangladesh's first CSE program as well as Kotha's flagship program. It is our first fully youth-led program. Basing itself off of a peer education model, Kotha forms these long-term partnerships with other schools which last around 2 to 3 months or 12 weeks. And it focuses on 6 core topics that combine not only Bangladesh-based research, but international guidelines to produce a program that is appropriate for the Bangladeshi youth. After 3 massively successful programs, Kotha at School has already impacted over 500 students. Through Kotha at School, we hope to further develop on these SDG goals being good health and well-being, quality education, as well as gender equality. So what does set Kotha at School apart from other programs is 2 things, one of them being our peer education model. So who are our peer education models? Who are our peer educators? Our peer educators are trained high school and college students as well as young professionals. See, our students prefer working with peer educators over your traditional teachers because our peer educators are much younger. This shorter age gap allows for them to have shared realities and experiences, which helps break barriers and abandon the power dynamics that exist within traditional student-teacher relationships, which is crucial for CSE. The breaking down of these barriers allow for safe spaces to be created in classrooms and allows for open dialogues to be in the classrooms. So who is our ideal peer educator? So from our focus groups with students, they have all said that our peer educators should be approachable, open-minded, respectful, unbiased, trustworthy, honest, and someone who can respect everyone in the classroom. The students have mentioned that daily interactions with their teachers can make it awkward for them to be open and learn about CSC. So the fact that our peer educators come in from outside add a sense of comfort and reassurance of confidentiality, so they know whatever they say in classrooms will stay with the peer educators. And since they already trust the peer educators, it works kind of perfectly as a model. A quote directly from one of our students is, "We could relate to the peer educators because their examples were so appropriate for our age. And that's why we had the urge to learn more. They use examples that students have already experienced in their lives." And this was the sentiment shared by most students we have reached. So the second thing that sets Kotha at School apart is our prioritization for sustainable learning. The longevity of the program make sure that their students retain the material better. Kotha School works with 12 week-long programs instead of some other one-off workshop, because after a 2 to 3 hour workshop, you're not retaining the same amount and you're much less likely to even practically use anything you learn. Also, this kind of gradual breakdown of the content works better for younger students. So they have time and repeated interaction with the peer educators so they can slowly grasp even more complex topics like the gender spectrum. And the sessions are integrated directly into the school routines. So Kotha School was an actual class for them on a weekly basis. So from my perspective as a student, that made it a lot easier. It never felt like I was doing anything extra or something I had to stay back after school for. It was actually a class and it was fun because the peer educators were there. So I always looked forward to it. So CSE focuses on our 6 core topics, them being gender consent, peer-to-peer relationships, sexual health, bullying, and cyber harassment, and bystander intervention. I will be passing it on to Nawal now, who will be continuing.
Thank you so much, Arya. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about a little bit about the core topics. And I think what really makes these core topics very good as an entire peer education model and fits in very well is that at Kotha School, we take a very holistic approach, which means all of these 6 core topics can't be talked about in isolation. We can't talk about consent without talking about sexual health and vice versa. And that's why it's very important to talk about all of these topics and to cover each topic extensively. Arya, can you move on to the next slide? Right. Thank you. So the first topic is gender, where we delve deep into ideas of femininity and masculinity and how essentially gender stereotypes are propagated in society. Yeah, can you move on to the next slide? Right. One of the most important topics that we cover is consent. This is where we believe it's extremely important for young students to learn exactly what the 5 principles of consent are, what cues of nonverbal and verbal consent mean, and to really understand what individuals' boundaries are and to respect them absolutely no matter what. Can you move on to the next slide, please, Ari? Thank you. So then we have peer-to-peer relationships. This is an extremely important topic in the context of in the context of Bangladesh. Why do we think so? Because in a lot of cases, we think that young students and young Bangladeshis cannot identify red flags within relationships. They can't identify when a relationship becomes abusive. This is where we think that understanding what a healthy relationship is, understanding how to be openly communicating and how to resolve conflicts is important in our situation today. Right. The next topic that we cover is sexual health. This is something that is actually groundbreaking in terms of Bangladesh, not only because it's something that's a taboo topic, but also because it's something that allows people and allows these students to be comfortable to ask these questions. As Arya had previously mentioned, the problem that students have with traditional teachers is that they can't really talk to these people, they can't really talk to students about this, and students can't ask them these questions either because they feel uncomfortable and they feel that they might be judged by these teachers. But with peer educators, these are people who openly initiate conversations with these students, and therefore the students feel that a safe space has been created where these people can when they can openly talk to them and they can openly ask these questions without feeling ashamed. Right. Then we have bullying and cyber harassment. We see that in online safety as something that has an important issue. And in a lot of cases, we see victims of bullying and people who suffer endlessly. And that suffering exists for a long period of time that requires a lot of therapy to get. This is where it's very important as third parties to intervene and ensure that these victims of bullying are people who, and that these things don't keep repeating over and over again. Right. The last topic we cover is bystander intervention, where in these situations, in a lot of cases, we've seen that females have been harassed on the streets, they have been assaulted, but even then people have stood by and done nothing. This is where we think it's important for people to learn the 5Ds of bystander intervention, where these people learn to de-escalate such scenarios and prevent verbal abuse from occurring by learning how to use the correct vocabulary. So that's just our core topics. How have these core topics been used in 3 successful programs? The first pilot program began in 2016 with just 30 12th grade students from Sunday School, right? So in these situations, we see that just in a matter of 2 years, it massively expanded, where in 2018, the program covered a far larger range of students from 9th to 12th grade in Sundays, and covering a total of 130 students in general. And in 2020, the program had its largest boost, where 6th to 8th grade students were reached, and over 500 students understood these concepts and finally gained knowledge. So what skills are these students learning in Kotha School? The first is definitely self-reflection and critical thinking. Many of us, before we do something or before we take a decision, before we open our words, or even after we take a decision, we don't critically think, we don't self-reflect. And we think that is an important skill set that we imbue within our students. But the second thing is negotiation and effective communication. As you've already mentioned, people can be very harmful and with their words, right? In this
Nawal, extremely sorry, you have 1 minute left.
All right,
cool. Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Ansha. So in these situations, people learn how to negotiate and communicate effectively. They learn how to make better decisions, and they also learn how to resolve conflict better. Right. Interactive techniques is where we delve deeper into how Kotha School is far more engaged. We first delve deeper into presentations, and this is where students act as peer educators in general. The second method we cover is group discussions and debate, where group activities occur. And the third method is, I think, empathy maps, where people learn and identify how in peer-to-peer relationships or in situations where people are bullied, why people do the things they do, why people bully, and why the victims feel the way they feel. But our most important and most fun and engaging technique is probably role play and skit design, where people directly design skits and design scenarios and play as characters. That is something that people from focus group discussions have already said, that this is something that's the most fun and engaging for these people. Creating and analyzing comics is also extremely important and one of our most popular methods, not only because it's something where people really directly understand, but also because this is focused on primarily from experiences of young Bangladeshis and not based on Western experiences. The last method is video screenings, where people see direct videos from other media. Kotha School's impact on students has been extremely great, where it has been directly documented, where more than 50% of students have said that they have used these skills at least once, and more than 80% have said this is the first time they have received such education. Right, I think that does end this presentation, where I would like to say thank you very much for attending, but also because Kotha lets me, that's a sentiment shared by everyone within the classroom. That's a sentiment that we as peer educators, as trainees, have also shared, and that's how we led to this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nawal and Arya, for this insightful presentation. Now we will be passing it on to Palki and Ahona, who will share their perspectives as part of the peer educator team. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Nuthat Mastura Palki, and I have been receiving training to be a peer educator in the Kotha School program for almost a year now. And one thing I have always loved about the training program that we have been going through in Kotha is the unique structure it follows that differs a lot from the traditional workshops or trainings. So traditional workshops.
Speak into the mic a little bit more.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So, the traditional workshops that I have attended in the past about gender based violence or anything related to that, I've always encountered people talking about theories or concepts that, without hardly ever relating it to real life events or personal experiences or explaining exactly how they affect actual people's lives. So I felt the theories or the concepts that were taught there were always kind of up in the air, and most of the time I could not connect them to how they relate or affect real people or their lives. But in the Kotha training program, the process was heavily discussion based, and there was no direct teaching in the traditional sense. Um, Rather, in each training session, we were encouraged to speak about the topic in question. So we all had to share our views and experiences and opinions, and the team leads moderated the discussion in a way so that we can reach our own conclusion and form our own takeaways as a team instead of someone just spoon feeding it to us. Although for some of the more important and sometimes hard to grasp topics like principles of consent or the culture of gender based violence, we got some very structured content based training, but they were also backed up with adequate discussion and experience sharing so that we don't get lost or the content does not feel something that is too out of touch or too fake for us. And personally, this approach helped me a lot because I was not only hearing my fellow trainees' experiences and opinions, but I was also scouring my own head, thinking about my past experiences and my views regarding the topic so that I can participate in the discussion. Um, so, in that way, a lot of my confusions or questions about the topics could get cleared up right away by my peers or the team leads, and I could identify exactly in which ways the topics were connected to or kind of affected not only other people's lives but my life too. And this made the training a lot more concrete too because we were learning by making mistakes first. And after the training session, or sometimes in the middle of the training session, there would be some activities about the topics we were learning. And those also differed from the typical assignments that we do in a kind of more traditional educational settings too, as they were very fun to do, but at the same time also challenge us to think deeper about the topics and consider various new aspects of it. For example, when we were learning about the topic of consent, we had to find 3 or 4 examples of popular media which are very celebrated and loved by our culture, but actually showcase instances of consent violations. Um, so our task was to find 2 or 3 clips from movies or TV shows or videos and analyze how consent was being violated in those specific scenarios and exactly which principles of consent were being violated. So that was an amazing exercise to do in my part because I could exactly see how the content I learned exists and manifests in the real world, our society, and also in media. And that exercise also gave me skills to identify consent violations of any form in any situation for the future. Another thing I wanted to mention is, alongside the core topics of the training program, such as consent, peer to peer relationships, gender, sexual health, bullying, and cyber harassment, etc., we also explored broader topics that are directly related to fighting gender based violence. For example, we have had 3 training sessions on feminism so far, and each session was more informative than the last. We started from the very basic question of what is feminism and why is it important for fighting gender-based violence in the first meeting, to learning in depth about power in society and how it relates to gender inequality in the second session, to kind of understanding how structural power imbalance affects culture and social mindsets and attitudes by learning Bangladesh's legal framework regarding personal laws in the third session. And all of these sessions were very enlightening to say the least, and because they helped me understand feminism and gender-based violence in ways that I never thought of before. So throughout the whole training program, I not only learned about the official topics that were covered, but I also grew a lot as a person as I became increasingly more empathetic and grew skills in the areas of teamwork and talking about sensitive topics in both private and public spheres. So this training program has been one of the most enriching experiences of my life that I cannot thank Kotha enough for. So that was all from me. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Palki. It was great hearing from you. Now we will be hearing perspectives from our own valuable students, Taha Rizal Karim and Sania Faham. They were part of the Kotha at School 2020 program at Aga Khan School. Thank you. Taha Rizal Karim and Sania Faham, are you both there?
Yes, I'm
I'm
here.
here.
Tanya, maybe you can go first.
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Sahnia Faham, and I'm very excited to be here. So I'll just talk about my experience with Kotha and how much I loved it. So if someone told me that Kotha would be publishing a book when I first got to know them, to be honest, I would have not been shocked at all. They made such a remarkable impression, I think not only on me, but on everyone who was there. I remember in one of the sessions when we were divided by our sections and each of us got one peer educators. After a break, we would all gather on and be like, oh, you got them. They're so cool. They talk this way and then they talk about that. So I don't think I've ever once heard them say like, I didn't like this topic or, get bored. Everyone kept participating, laughing, joking, and surprisingly at the same time, we learned a lot. I think they really have created a special place in our hearts in their own magical way. I remember in one of the student focus sessions, we started sharing all of our previous experiences, and I loved how everyone just opened up and trusted each other so much. And in class or even outside class, they have not failed to make an impact. I also remember in one of the classes, one of our teachers just utilized the class to talk about how social media is bad, you should not date, and all. But I think what Kotha did was that instead of prohibiting the these, they taught us how to utilize it properly and helped to be ourselves instead of just asking us to do what makes us happy. And I have learned a lot as well. There was this session on peer-to-peer relationships, and to myself, I thought it wouldn't be useful to me since I do not want it to get into a relationship. But then a few days later, I talked to my cousins and all. We were talking, and she was talking about one of her closest friends, and I just immediately saw all the red flags, and I had to share my opinion with her. And that really helped. Now she is out of that toxic relationship and is doing better than ever. So I guess what this teaches us is that knowledge comes in all forms. And yeah, I also have another example of how perfect their work is and how enjoyable it is. In one of the sessions, we were watching videos on how gender stereotype its origin and how it's a marketing scheme. And we had a very broad discussion about that later. And we were asked to make one of the recreations of those. And we all kept making fun of, the marketing scheme and kept laughing because of how these stereotypes and this sexism does not make sense at all. And even after all the laughter, all the fun, we got to know something new. And how I know that I actually learned something is that because after that day, I did not hesitate to buy a men's shampoo because I knew if I bought it, didn't buy it because it's label, I would have been a victim to the marketing scheme. And finally, I honestly would not have expected to be picked for these sessions and all. I expected the class toppers and the people who speak more in class to be picked, and the thought of me didn't even cross my mind. And that is what they do. They choose the lesser chosen and talk about the lesser said things. And it is one of the many reasons I would do anything to be working with them again. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sania. Now, can we move on to Taha?
Can everybody hear me? So hello everyone. My name is Tahir Rizal Kareem. I am a grade 7. I'm from Al Khan School and I'm a Kotha School alumni. So when Kotha came to our school, I thought it was like going to be like any other class, just one off. But then when I heard it was going to be for 2 months, I was absolutely stoked because I was like, yeah, I'm going to learn something. So in the first few classes, we got to know about our peer education educators and the topics. And when I learned those topics, I was like, yes, these topics that we're going to work on are going to be the topics which are very relatable to our time. And I was ready, and honestly, I was very excited to learn them because I was like, yes, more knowledge. Um, when the peer educators, they were very close to me. I could feel a sense of bond with them, because I could like share every thought and every personal detail without having them to judge me. And the peer educators were like my older sisters. I could just share anything without hesitating, which was like very happy for me. um So the topics that they have showed us, it was very interactive and it was fun. My favorite one was obviously the drama because it was very exciting and I love drama. And one anecdote I would like to share is I remember we were doing peer-to-peer education and we got to a subject called manipulation, and I could I could bond with the peer educator as I shared a personal detail and she could sympathize with me, which also made me feel have more trust in her. In the end, wait. In the end, I have started to use two of the six topics that we have learned. One of them is consent. Before I do anything, I always ask for consent from anyone, and in breaking up fights, like I would like to be the middleman in fights. Like if anyone's having fight with another, I would like to break the fight and calm the mood. And I truly owe Kotha a huge thanks because I never thought I would come up to these events and share my experience with others. I always thought myself as like a, like a wildflower never being able to bloom. So I would always, but thank you, Kotha, for giving me, and I give all my best wishes for the future endeavors. And if you ever need me, I'm always here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Taha. Thank you so much, Sania. Now we will be moving on to Mayavi and Sharika, who happen to be our peer educator team leads, and they will be presenting the training manual, Peer Education 101 for us by us, strengthening the CSE ecosystem in Bangladesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Aisha. Umama, would you be able to screen share for us? Thank you so much. So hi, everyone. As Aisha already mentioned, I'm a co-team lead of the peer education team at Kotha. So I work both as a peer educator and a trainer of peer educators. So I think we finally reached one of the most anticipated parts of today's ceremony, which is the grand reveal of our training manual, Peer Education 101 for us bias. So this has been developed by the Kotha team with support from PPRC as a recipient of the ShareNet International Small Grant 2020. So Next slide. Um, is it working? Okay, yes, so the wonderful cover of our training manual can be seen in all of your screens right now. Thank you to our lovely designer, Ryan, for coming up with this design. Um, it was a lot of hard work to get to this position, and I'm so happy to be sharing this with everyone finally. So before we get into the contents of the booklet of the manual, I'd like to first talk about why exactly we decided to create a resource like this. So as you all might know, Kotha has played a key role in popularizing CSE or comprehensive sexuality education in Bangladesh. And this training manual is yet another effort to do the same by aiding other youth-led organizations that are similar to Kotha in expanding their work in CSE or SRHR education. So how does this manual aim to achieve that? Well, it aims to promote the practice of peer education, which we've heard in earlier conversations today, that it is a key to solving last mile challenges in CSE or SRHR delivery. So the manual will essentially simplify the peer educator training process so that it is accessible to young people already working or wanting to work in CSE or SRHR education. Next slide, please. So this manual is a product of a lot of previous research findings based in Bangladesh on important issues such as young people's accessibility to SRHR education or key SRHR questions young people have, and a lot more. So the manual also combines a lot of the experiences and lessons learned by young people who have already worked on the ground with CSE and SRHR, whose experiences have not previously been archived in a format such as this. So what's different about the format? We already know that a lot of research papers and articles exist on CSE, but these usually contain a lot of technical jargon, which makes it inaccessible for young people. So we put in a lot of effort to ensure our manual reads as like a frank conversation between two young people about CSE and peer education. So this brings me to the title of our training manual. Next slide, please. Which is, of course, Peer Education 101 for us, by us. So the for us, by us essentially means for the youth, by the youth. So all the people who have worked to develop this resource are young people. And the group we want to reach with this manual consists of young people as well. So we've made the content simple, friendly, approachable, and all the instructions inside have been simplified and broken down so that anyone reading this manual can understand exactly what is being said. So we've also tried to use a lot of humor. You'll see in our content, and a lot of fun illustrations that are appealing to a youth audience. So since we're talking about an audience, this leads us to the question, who exactly is our target audience? So our intermediary target group consists of organizations that are already working on or are looking to get involved in institutional CSE or SRHR delivery programs. So our focus, as I've mentioned before, is mainly on youth-led grassroots organizations. But like the peer education-led CSE programs that will be initiated through the use of the manual will directly impact middle school to high school students, which is why they are our ultimate target group. Okay, so next let's get into the development of the training manual. So a lot of our work already built on existing resources like Umama had mentioned before, like UNFPA's Wide Peer Network, and also resources from Planned Parenthood, which means during secondary research for the manual, we found that there are quite a few peer educator training resources available on the internet, but we also discovered a few gaps that I want to talk about. So one thing that was missing was that not a single one of these manuals was based in Bangladesh specifically, or even South Asia. And as Bangladeshis, we know the kind of challenges we face trying to even utter the word sex in public. So it's easy to understand how difficult it can get to work with CSE in this environment, in this country. So Western training manuals fail to take these unique challenges we face into consideration. Moreover, we noticed that, as Umama had also mentioned, that most of these manuals follow like 3 to 7 day workshop models for training peer educators, but we believe that it takes a lot more time and effort to fully equip a young person with the right skills and mentality to deliver the sensitive content of CSE. So we also realized that even though these resources were made for young people, they were not made by young people, which means there was a lack of youth perspectives included. So as peer educators and trainers at Kotha and as young Bangladeshis, we found ourselves able to use our experiences to create this resource that addresses the unique issues that you won't really find information on in any Western training manual. So next up, apart from all the secondary research on both CSE and non-CSE training manuals, we also held a lot of focus group discussions, and that data helped us tremendously during content development. If we could go to the next slide, please. So yes, you'll see that we've held 3 focus group discussions with alumni from the 3 Kotha school programs we've had so far, which is our CSE program. So we also held FGDs with grassroots organizations, which fall under our target group, and also one with our very own peer educator trainees, because of course their insight is also very valuable. We had key informant interviews with organizations experienced in the field of CSE and also consulted with some experts on the field. Next slide, please. So this is perhaps my favorite slide. You can see here the title pages of all 10 chapters of our training manual, and it has a range of different topics. So I think this should be a clear indication of just how comprehensive this training manual is. So anyone interested in a CSE program can learn about everything starting from planning the program to training, to classroom challenges, documentation, evaluation and feedback. And of course, the last chapter, how to navigate challenges in the context of Bangladesh. So not only are you set for the entire program, you can also very easily pick and choose whichever aspect of the program you require help in. Like say, for example, you want to know how to build your peer educator trainees public speaking skills. So you can just flip to chapter 5 and you'll be good to go. So I think now my teammate Sharika will be taking over. Sharika?
Thank you, Mayavi. Now that Mayavi has mentioned the work that went into making the book, I wanted to talk a bit about the content of the book itself. Our book is primarily meant to serve 3 purposes. 1, provide someone with the resources to set up a peer education program. 2, pass on effective training strategies to potential trainers. And 3, provide self-help resources for anyone who wishes to be well-versed in all things peer education. Essentially, it's to help set up a pipeline of peer educators for comprehensive success. However, beyond skills and strategies, what lies at the core of our work as peer educators and this book is an understanding of the root causes of gender inequality. Next slide, please. We believe that CSE peer education work is necessarily feminist work. And while a lot of training resources out there mention women's rights, we observe that the discourse stops at sexual and reproductive health rights, which is a biology. But that is an incomplete picture of the reality that we live in. Conversations around CSE have to start with conversations about gender inequality. We cannot talk about something like consent without understanding how our society's definition of gender norm gives men more power and how women and people of gender minorities are disproportionately at a disadvantage because of it. Next slide. We know that sexist attitudes and beliefs give rise to gender-based violence and gender inequality. To be engaged in CSE conversation, peer educators and people in general need to be aware of the different factors at play. Even peer educators, especially peer educators, need to think critically and to unlearn biases that they've been conditioned to have by society, because harmful mindsets and gender stereotypes contribute to the culture of violence. This is why we believe that this work needs to be rooted in feminist values, and that is the stone that we have set for the book. With that, let's take a look at what we actually have under skills training for peer educators in our book. A peer educator not only needs to be adept at critical thinking, self-reflection, and effective communication themselves, but they also must be able to pass on those skills to their students. And it is vital for this transfer of information and skills to be done well at both levels. That is from trainer to educator, and then from educator to students. Next slide. So that is why our book breaks down the role of peer educators into different components and skills that they need to master. In addition to that, as already mentioned by Mayami, we not only tell them what they need to be prepared for and why, but also the how. The how to is something that was severely lacking from most training manuals out there. So we tried to bridge that gap by providing tips, sample training exercises, templates, and more to help readers move beyond the theory to the application of this knowledge and or skills. Next slide. The way we train peer educators at Kotha is similar to how we conduct CSE classes for our Kotha at School program. One of the reasons why peer education works so well is because it breaks down the traditional barriers of teaching by making lessons more interactive by utilizing a wide range of tools, as you can see on the slide. The benefit of following a similar model to train peer educators is that they learn how to recreate that learning environment for their students as well. Our book addresses many of the research on creating access to CSE for young people. One reason we advocate for peer education models is because of the confidentiality and the creation of safe spaces that comes with it. BRAC's Breaking the Shame Towards Improving SRH or Education for Adolescents and Youth in Bangladesh, and many other research in this area show that one of the biggest hesitations for young people when it comes to accessing CSE is the fear of lack of confidentiality. So our book does not talk about creation of safe spaces in the abstract, but backs it up with information on how to set it up and an expansive list of ground rules that peer educators must follow to maintain the trust of their students. Next slide. I know that this works because in the words of our Kotha at School students, some of the things that they valued the most are trust, reliability, open-mindedness from their peer educators, which is something that a lot of them have said that they lacked from traditional teachers and family members, which is yet another reason why peer education is so important in making CSE more widely accessible and being taught effectively. Last but not the least, our book covers what challenges are involved in planning and executing a peer education program in Bangladesh and practical tips on how to overcome them. We believe this is necessary because we cannot just talk about a CSE program in a vacuum. We have to take into account the responses of society, school administration, and guardians, specifically the backlash due to the taboo surrounding CSE. This section was created from our own experience and from the experiences of other organizations and people who have been working in this field. We provide insight into how to approach different stakeholders, how to negotiate, along with other specific advice relating to it. Our hope at the end of the day is that this book serves as a useful resource for people in whatever capacity they need it for. We have carefully curated our content and designed it to make it more accessible and interesting to our readers, especially the youth. And we cannot wait to share this book with everyone. On that note, I'd like to end our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Sharika. Thank you so much, Mayavi, for this wonderful presentation. Now we would like to move on to Nareen Pallavi, who's the founder of Sex Education Bangladesh platform. Her work is based in Rajshahi, and she will be talking about youth action in CSE and how it's very important. Thank you very much. Nareen Pallavi.
Hello everyone, I'm Noreen. I have an organization named Six Sense. Sex Education Bangladesh is a part of Sixth Sense, which is working in online. Sixth Sense basically. I'm sorry, I'm not ready for for video conference.
Okay, no worries. Naren, go ahead.
ওকে আমি আমার একটা অর্গানাইজেশন আছে যেটা সিক্স সেন্স নাম। তো আমরা ফিল্ডে কাজ করছি লাস্ট 1.5 বছর ধরে। তো আমরা বেসিক্যালি গুড টাচ অ্যান্ড ব্যাড টাচের একটা প্রজেক্ট চালাচ্ছি নিজেরাই আর কি। সবাই যেখানে স্টুডেন্টস ভলান্টিয়াররা। তো আমরা মোটামুটি রাজশাহীতে 35 স্কুল কভার করেছি বাচ্চাদের সাথে সেশন করে, অ্যান্ড আমরা আরো নোয়াখালী অ্যান্ড আরো এক জায়গায় প্রোগ্রাম করছি। তো এখানে যেটা হয়েছে, তারপরে আমি যেটা দেখেছি যে ফিল্ড ওয়ার্কে গিয়ে একটা স্কুল ম্যানেজ করা বা বাচ্চাদের সাথে ওয়ার্কশপ করা, এই জিনিসগুলো যখন আমরা শুরু করেছি তখন একদমই আমাদের কোনো প্রশিক্ষণ ছিল না, মানে কোনো ট্রেনিং ছিল না, কোনো গাইডলাইন ছিল না। তো যার কারণে আমরা দেখেছি যে বিভিন্ন প্রোগ্রামে গিয়ে আমরা ফেস করে শিখেছি। যেমন কোনো স্কুলে রিজেক্ট হয়ে গেছি, আমরা গিয়ে বলেছি যে আমরা আসলে বাচ্চাদের চাইল্ড সেক্সুয়াল অ্যাবিউজ নিয়ে একটু অ্যাওয়ার করতে চাই, এন্ড তাদেরকে প্রাইভেট বডি পার্টস সম্পর্কে কিছু জানাইতে চাই। তারা স্ট্রিক্টলি আমাদেরকে রিজেক্ট করে দিছে, এন্ড বারবার ফোন করার পরেও তারা আমাদেরকে আর অ্যালাউ করে নাই। তো আমরা সেখান থেকে শিখলাম যে আসলে এইভাবে গিয়ে স্কুল কনভিন্স করা যাবে না। তো তারপর থেকে আমরা গিয়ে স্কুলে বলতাম যে আমরা আসলে বাচ্চাদের সাথে একটু গল্প করতে চাই, এন্ড বাচ্চাদের সাথে অনেক খারাপ কিছু হচ্ছে রিসেন্টলি, তো আমরা তাদের সাথে যদি একটু কথা বলি তাহলে হয়তো তাদের জন্য বেটার হবে। তো দেখা গেল যে তারপর থেকে আমাদের কোনো স্কুলে আর আটকাচ্ছে না, আমরা তখন প্রোগ্রাম করতে পারতেছি। তো এভাবে কাজ করছি। এন্ড সেক্স এডুকেশন বাংলাদেশ বেসিক্যালি আমার মনে হয় যে ফিল্ডে কাজ করার চেয়ে অনলাইনে কাজ করা কিছুটা সহজ, অনেকটাই সহজ। এখানে অনেক কিছু বলা যায়, অনেক যেটা আসলে সরাসরি প্রোভাইড করা সম্ভব না স্কুলে এখনো বাংলাদেশের কনটেক্সটে। তবে কথা যেটা করেছে, কথার এই পিয়ার এডুকেশনের যে বইটা ওরা রেডি করেছে, এটা আমি আসলে অনেক বেশি থ্যাঙ্কফুল, কারণ লাস্ট 1 বছর আমি খুঁজছিলাম এরকম কাউকে যার কাছ থেকে আমার ভলান্টিয়ারদের মধ্যে যারা বেসিক্যালি সেশনে এডুকেটর হিসেবে কাজ করে তাদের একটা ট্রেনিং সেশন করানোর জন্য। আমি আসলে খুঁজছিলাম যে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে আমরা বিভিন্ন সিচুয়েশন ফেস করে যেগুলো শিখছি সেগুলো যদি আমরা অ্যাটলিস্ট 2 দিনের ট্রেনিংও যদি আমরা এডুকেটরদেরকে দিতে পারি তাহলে তারা খুব স্মুথলি কাজ করতে পারবে। আর দেখা গেছে যে অনেক স্কুলে আমরা ঢুকতেই পারি নাই, তো এই ধরনের অনাকাঙ্ক্ষিত ঘটনাগুলো ঘটবে না। সো আমি আসলে কথার প্রতি খুবই থ্যাঙ্কফুল, মানে এক্সপ্লেন করতে পারতেছি না হয়তো। তো এটা খুব ভালো হয়েছে, এন্ড এই বইটা আমার জন্য অনেক হেল্পফুল হবে, মানে আমার অর্গানাইজেশনের জন্য। আমি মনে করি যারা এডুকেশন সেক্টরে কাজ করছে, নন প্রফিট বা প্রফিট যেসব অর্গানাইজেশন আছে প্রত্যেকের জন্য এটা হেল্পফুল হবে। আর আমি ফাউন্ডেশনকে রিকোয়েস্ট করব যে তারা যেন এই শুধু বই না, তারা একটা ট্রেনিং সেশন করে, and আমরা সবাই মিলে সেই প্ল্যাটফর্মটাকে আরো অনেক বেশি শক্তিশালী করে তুলতে পারি। এটা থেকে আমরা সবাই উপকৃত হব। আসলে এ ধরনের কিছু খুব জরুরি ছিল আমি মনে করি। থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ নারিন। আর আমি জাস্ট সবাইকে বলতে চাই যে নারিনের যে প্ল্যাটফর্মটা আর ওর টিমের সাথে যে কাজটা করছে অত্যন্ত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ এন্ড ভেরি ইন্সপায়ারিং। সো থ্যাংক ইউ নারিন তোমার এই কাজটা করে যাওয়ার জন্য। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you very much, Noreen. Now, for the next 25 minutes, we will be hearing from our discussants. We will start with Samia Afrin, Project Manager, Nari Pokho. Thank you.
অনেক অনেক অভিনন্দন দিয়ে তোমাদের শুরু করছি। অনেক বড় একটা কাজ করেছে যেখানে কিনা কেউ সাহস পায় নাই এরকম একটা কাজ করার জন্য। অনেক অনেক অভিনন্দন সবাইকে যারা এই টিমে ছিল, এবং কথাকে তো অবশ্যই, এবং উমামা ইনিশিয়েটিভ নিয়েছে, এই জন্য অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ এবং অভিনন্দন সবাইকে। আমি জাস্ট শুনছিলাম, এবং আমি গতকালই ম্যানুয়ালটা পেলাম, একটু জাস্ট চোখ বুলানোর চেষ্টা করছিলাম। এটা খুবই একটা কম্প্রিহেন্সিভ একটা ম্যানুয়াল হয়েছে, এবং যদি আমরা এই ম্যানুয়ালটাকে ঠিকমতো কাজে লাগাতে পারি, যারা কিনা আমাদের অ্যাডোলেসেন্ট আছে স্কুলে, তারা কিন্তু অনেক বেশি উপকৃত হবে। এবং আমরা অবশ্যই জানি যে মানব জীবনের এই যে কৈশোরকাল, এটা হলো দ্বিতীয় শতক, এবং এই বয়সটা আসলে ঝুঁকিপূর্ণ, কিন্তু এই বয়সটা থেকে অনেক কিছু, এই বয়সটার মধ্যে যদি এই বয়সের ছেলে মেয়েদের আমরা গাইড করতে পারি, তাহলে তারা ভবিষ্যতে ভালো মানুষ হিসেবে তৈরি হতে পারে বলে আমাদের অনেকেরই ভাবনা। এবং এদের প্রতি আসলে আমাদের অনেক বেশি যত্ন নেওয়া, তবে খুবই কেয়ারফুলি যত্ন নিতে হবে বিভিন্নভাবে। এবং আমি দেখছিলাম যে এই যে ম্যানুয়াল যেটা করেছে, এই ম্যানুয়ালটার মধ্যে সবকিছু বিষয় নিয়ে আসছে, এবং এটার মধ্যে যেমন জেন্ডার বেস ভায়োলেন্স, যেখানে জেন্ডার, যেখানে সেক্সুয়াল রিপ্রোডাক্টিভ হেলথ অ্যান্ড রাইটস ইস্যু, যেখানে কনসেন্টের বিষয়টা, বিভিন্ন বিষয়গুলো নিয়ে আসছে, যেটা ট্রেনিং এর মাধ্যমে দক্ষ করা হবে যারা পিয়ার এডুকেটর হিসেবে কাজ করবে, এবং তারা আবার এটাকে ডেলিভারি দিবে যেখানে তারা এই ট্রেনিং করাবে স্টুডেন্টদের সাথে। এবং এটা খুবই ভালো একটা ম্যানুয়াল বলে আমার মনে হচ্ছে। যারা আমরা এই বিষয়ে কাজ করতে চাচ্ছি বা শুরু করেছি, তাদের জন্য অনেক ভালো। যেটা নাওরিন বললেন যে আমাদের আসলে সবাই এটা থেকে খুবই উপকৃত হব। এবং এখানে যে বিষয়টা আছে, আমরা যেটা দেখেছি, কখনোই এই ছোট অভিজ্ঞতা থেকে যে আমরা ছাত্রছাত্রীদের শেখাবো বা অ্যাডোলেসেন্টদের একটা কথা বলবো, তারা কি চায় সেটা আমরা কখনোই চিন্তা করি না, বা তাদের কাছ থেকে আমরা কখনো জানতে চাই না যে তারা কি চায়, সেটার মধ্যে আমরা নিব কিনা। এবং আমাদের যে সরকারি পাঠ্যপুস্তকে যে কম্প্রিহেন্সিভ সেক্সুয়ালিটি এডুকেশনের যে বিষয়টা আছে, সেটা কিন্তু আমরা অনেকবার অনেক ফোরাম থেকে কিন্তু আমরা বলে আসছিলাম এটা পড়ানো হচ্ছে না, যেটা এই ছেলে মেয়েদের জন্য খুবই জরুরি। এবং এটা আসলে কিভাবে পড়ানো হবে সেটা নিয়ে সরকারের ভাবনা, আবার কেউ কেউ বলছে পড়ানো হচ্ছে। তা আমরা আসলে বাস্তবতে দেখছিলাম যে আসলে এটা পড়ানো হচ্ছে না। এখন এই যে ম্যানুয়ালটা তৈরি হলো কথার মাধ্যমে, এবং এটাকে যদি সব জায়গায় ছড়ায় দেয়া যায়, তাহলে কিন্তু এই ম্যানুয়ালের মাধ্যমে আমি আশা করি এটা সবাই মিলে একটা বাংলাটাও করবে এবং ছোট করে নিয়ে আসবে। সেটার মাধ্যমে আমরা একেবারে মাঠ পর্যায়ে যে যার জায়গা থেকে হয়তো এটা আমরা বিস্তর ঘটাতে পারবো বলে আমি আশা করি। এবং এই ম্যানুয়ালটার মধ্যে যে বিষয়গুলো আছে, সেই বিষয়গুলো ওর মাধ্যমে কিন্তু এই যে অ্যাডোলেসেন্ট যারা আছে তারা দক্ষতা বৃদ্ধি হবে, যেটা সরকারেরও যেটা ন্যাশনাল অ্যাডোলেসেন্ট রিপ্রোডাক্টিভ যে স্ট্র্যাটেজি আছে, সেটার মধ্যেও কিন্তু খুব ভাবে আছে যে এই অ্যাডোলেসেন্টদের হলো গিয়ে দক্ষতা বৃদ্ধির বিষয়টা তাদের ক্ষমতায়ন করা হবে। ক্ষমতায়ন শুধু তো বললে হবে না, ক্ষমতায়ন করতে হলে কিছু পদ্ধতির মাধ্যমে যেতে হবে। এবং এটার মাধ্যমে যদি যাওয়া যায় এবং খোলামেলা আলোচনা করা, এবং কাছাকাছি বয়সী যারা পেয়ার এডুকেটর হিসেবে কাজ করবে, এটা কিন্তু অনেক বড় একটা বিষয় এবং শিক্ষণীয় একটা বিষয় যে কাছাকাছি বয়সের মানুষদের কাছে সবাই কিন্তু বলতে চায়, বা বন্ধুত্বপূর্ণ সম্পর্কটা তৈরি হয়। এবং এই বন্ধুত্বপূর্ণ সম্পর্কের মাধ্যমেই কিন্তু অনেক বেশি খোলামেলা হওয়া যায়, নিজেদের ভালো লাগা মন্দ লাগা সবকিছু খোলামেলা আলোচনা করা যায়। যে এই আলোচনাগুলো যদি করা যায়, তাহলে কিন্তু এই কিশোর কিশোরীরা বিপদগামী হবে না, আমাদের অভিভাবকরা অনেক বেশি চিন্তিত হবে না। এবং অনেক বড় একটা দিক যেটা এই ম্যানুয়ালের মধ্যে যেটা আনা হয়েছে, যে সোসাইটিকে এটার মধ্যে কিভাবে ইনভলভ করা যায়, প্যারেন্ট যারা আছে তাদের কিভাবে ইনভলভ করা যায়, এবং স্কুল কমিটি যারা আছে তাদের। এবং আমি সর্বোপরি মনে করব যে গভর্নমেন্টের যারা এই নীতি নির্ধারক আছে এই বিষয়ে, তাদের কিভাবে এই বিষয়টার উপরে আরো বেশি ওরিয়েন্টেশন দেয়া যায়, সেটা কিন্তু অনেক বেশি জরুরি আমার মনে হচ্ছে। এবং এটার মাধ্যমে আমাদের যে পুরনো যে ধ্যান ধারণা, সেটার কিন্তু একটা পরিবর্তন হবে বলে আশাবাদী আমি। এবং এই পেয়ার এডুকেটররা ট্রেন্ড আপ হবে, তৈরি হবে অনেক বেশি, এবং তারা কিন্তু সারা বাংলাদেশে এই অভিজ্ঞতাটা, তাদের শিক্ষণীয় দিকটা ছড়ায় দিতে পারবে বিভিন্ন স্কুলের বাইরে যে যারা আছে তাদের মাধ্যমে কিন্তু এটা একটা ছড়িয়ে দেওয়ার একটা সম্ভাবনা আছে। এবং এটার মাধ্যমে আমি মনে করি যে যে নারীবাদের যে চিন্তা ভাবনা অধিকার বোধ শরীর সম্পর্কে যে সিদ্ধান্ত নেয়া আমি কি আমার শরীর সম্পর্কে যে আমার সিদ্ধান্ত নেওয়ার অধিকার আছে এবং যৌন প্রজনন স্বাস্থ্য বিষয়টা কি এটা বললেই ভেবেই নেয় লোকজন যে আসলে এটা খুবই খারাপ শব্দ সেক্সুয়ালিটির বিষয় যেটা সেগুলো আসলে একটা আলোচনার মাধ্যমে এবং আলোচনায় শুধু না এটা চর্চার মধ্যে নিয়ে আসতে হবে এবং চর্চার মধ্যে মাধ্যমে নিয়ে আসলেই কিন্তু এই কিশোর কিশোরীরা ভবিষ্যতে তাদের একটা সুন্দর জীবন তারা পাবে আমরা মনে করি ভবিষ্যৎ একটা অন্যরকম বাংলাদেশ তৈরি হবে বলে আমরা আশাবাদী এবং আমি মনে করি যে এটা কিভাবে ছড়ায় দেয়া যায় এবং এটার মধ্যে এই যে ম্যানুয়ালটা সেটা কিভাবে সরকারি নীতি নির্ধারণী পর্যায়ে নিয়ে আলোচনা করাটা খুবই জরুরি এবং এটার মাধ্যমে কিন্তু সরকারকেও আরেকটু টনক নড়ানো যে এবং যারা আমাদের ডেভেলপমেন্ট পার্টনার আছে তাদের সাথেও আলোচনা করা যে এই ডেভেলপমেন্ট পার্টনারের মাধ্যমেও কিন্তু সরকারকে একটা এটা বাস্তবায়ন করা বা এটা ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশনে যাওয়ার কিন্তু একটা বিষয় চাপ দেওয়ার বিষয়টা কিন্তু হতে পারে বলে আমি আশা করছি এবং আমি আবারও অনেক কৃতজ্ঞতা জানাচ্ছি এই কথা বাংলাদেশকে যে তারা একটা মানে অনেক চ্যালেঞ্জিং একটা কাজ হাতে নিয়েছে যেটার মাধ্যমে হয়তো আগামীতে সমাজ পরিবর্তনের একটা প্রাথমিক ধাপ বলে আমি মনে করছি এবং আমাদের আবারও আলোচনা করা দরকার এবং সরকারি পর্যায়ে আলোচনা করা দরকার যে যারা কিনা এই নীতি নির্ধারণী পর্যায়ে বিভিন্ন টেক্সট বুক পর্যালোচনা করছে তারা নতুন করে তৈরি করছে বিষয় সিলেক্ট করছে সেখানে যাতে এই অ্যাডোলেসেন্ট এবং ইয়ুথদের যাতে সম্পৃক্ত করে আমি মনে করি এই আলোচনাগুলো ওখানে নিয়ে যাওয়াটা খুবই জরুরি কথার মাধ্যমে আমি মনে করি সেটা ওখানে যাবে এবং আমরা যারা সিভিল সোসাইটি অর্গানাইজেশন আছি যারা আমরা নারী আন্দোলনের সাথে সম্পৃক্ত তারা অবশ্যই এটার সাথে আমরা থাকবো বলে আশা করছি এবং এটার মাধ্যমে এই যে কিশোর কিশোরীদের একটা সেফ স্পেস তৈরি হবে যেটার মাধ্যমে তারা এই যে ভায়োলেন্সের শিকার আর হবে না আমরা শুধু বলছি যে মেয়েরাই বেশি ভায়োলেন্সের শিকার হচ্ছে কোথাও ছেলেরাও হচ্ছে মাদ্রাসাগুলোতে হচ্ছে আমাদের এই বিভিন্ন সময় নারী পক্ষের কাজের অভিজ্ঞতা থেকে আমরা দেখেছি বিভিন্ন পর্যায়ে এই অ্যাডোলেসেন্টরা বা ইয়ুথরা এবং ছেলে এবং মেয়ে উভয়রাই বিভিন্ন পর্যায়ে যে সহিংসতার শিকার হচ্ছে সেই বিষয়গুলো আসলে এটা কোনোটাই সাদা কালো বা ব্ল্যাক এন্ড হোয়াইটের বিষয় না এটা পরতে খুলে দেখতে হবে কেন এটা হচ্ছে কিভাবে হচ্ছে এবং পরিবর্তন যদি চাই আজকে স্বাধীনতার 50 বছর সেখানে আমরা অনেক পরিবর্তন দেখেছি অনেক নারীদের অনেক অবদান ছিল কিন্তু কতটুকু অধিকার পেয়েছে সেটার আসলে এখন পর্যালোচনা করার সময় এসেছে আমি মনে করি এই যে কথার যে ইয়ুথ গ্রুপ ইয়াং গ্রুপরা এরাই এই বিষয়টা আমাদের সামনে নিয়ে এসেছে আমাদের কাজ হবে এদের সহযোগিতা করে এটাকে নীতি নির্ধারণী পর্যায়ে নিয়ে যাওয়া যাতে এটা প্রপার ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন হয় এবং আমি যতদূর জানি যেটা যে ইউবিআর অ্যালায়েন্স আজকে দেখলাম মাসফিকা আপাও আছে এখানে সে নিশ্চয়ই বলবে তারাও কিন্তু এরকম একটা ম্যানুয়াল তৈরি করেছে যে মি এন্ড মাই ওয়ার্ল্ড সেটাও কিন্তু খুবই কম্প্রিহেন্সিভ তো এরকম অনেক ম্যানুয়াল এরকম আছে সেগুলো সবগুলোকে নিয়ে আমরা একটা ব্ল্যান্ড করতে পারি যে ব্ল্যান্ডটার একটা জায়গায় হবে সেখানে সেটা নিয়ে আমরা সরকারি নীতি নির্ধারণী পর্যায়ে এগুলা নিয়ে আলোচনা করতে পারি এবং অবশ্যই আমাদের ইয়ুথদের অ্যাডোলেসেন্টদের ভয়েস রেইজ করতে হবে আওয়াজ তুলতে হবে যে না আমার এটা প্রয়োজন সেই জন্যই দেশের পরিবর্তনের জন্য একটা সুন্দর সমাজ তৈরির জন্য এটা আমাদের দরকার আবারও আমাকে আমন্ত্রণ জানানোর জন্য কথাকে অবশ্যই কৃতজ্ঞতা এবং ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি এবং সর্বোপরি কথার সমস্ত টিমকে যারা এটার জন্য কাজ করেছে আবারও অভিনন্দন জানিয়ে আমি শেষ করছি অনেক ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে
ম্যাম আপনাকে অনেক ধন্যবাদ now we will move on to Sarban Tahura ma'am who is the national coordinator of Right Here Right Now. Ma'am, you will get 5 minutes. Sarban Tahura ma'am. Right. Umama, we have to unmute, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for unmuting me. I'm not opening my camera. That might disrupt the internet connection. First of all, thank you for inviting me and congratulations to Umama and the whole Kotha team for developing such an amazing manual. and I'll be very brief. So I will start with my reflection on the manual. I feel it's very nicely done, easy to read, and it's very user-friendly. And I feel this module is a groundbreaking one and will pave the way, and that this manual provides a process that we can follow in tackling gender-based violence through CSE. And in terms of peer-to-peer learning that they have introduced through this manual, that and they have been conducted sessions in different schools, that will help to enable safe environment for learning, because SRHR and CEC, these are very sensitive topic in our country and people do not want to talk about it, especially with the teacher, with the parents. So this is something that we can look forward to in, if we want to achieve 2030 agenda. And they have talked about, and they are using enabling language. That is another important and very crucial if you want to, let people have that, space to learn. And these are young people, they're very sensitive and they're eager to learn. And it's really important to give them the right kind of message. And I see this manual is based on feminist approach, and their ground rules are reflecting feminist values, for example, practicing Hussein, no misogynistic joke, no homophobia. And these are really important topics that we really talk about in the school setups, in educational settings and different institutions. And I could see the pyramid of behavior. That is something that I really, really loved. And I think this will help young people in schools to understand the underlying causes of gender-based violence and the root cause of misogyny. When they will be talking about, discussing this, then I look forward to know more about how young people are responding to this pyramid. I genuinely look forward to that. And bringing the crucial topics like how do we understand the culture of violence as such. And I think this is, because this is very much inbuilt in our society based on the heteronormative and patriarchal system, and having dialogue around this issue will definitely provide food for thought to these young people, because they are, because the target group is until 10 to 13, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. So it's very interesting to see these people are talking about misogyny in their school setups that we never got this opportunity in our schools, of course. And this training manual, I would not say this is only a training manual. This is a very interesting knowledge book, I would say that. And this will definitely be helping young people and young advocates, because in RHN we have been working with like hundreds of young advocates across Bangladesh. So if I was wondering if you are planning to do it in Bangla as well, so that we can also disseminate among our youth advocates, so that they can also take help from this manual, and they can reach out to their respective communities, including very remote areas. And another thing that I felt is, since English medium schools are yet to get like proper CSE curricula in their textbook, therefore this kind of initiative are really great. This is not small, it's a very groundbreaking one, and Kotha is doing really good job in reaching out this section of the society, because they are not reached properly yet. And again, congratulating Kotha, Mama, and the whole team for doing such an amazing job. And thank you. I think I'm on time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we will be moving on to Mushfika Satyar, Gender Advisor, Netherlands Embassy. Ma'am, you will also have 5 minutes. Thank you. Ma'am, could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me today in this launching event. I'm really feeling very proud to be part of this launching ceremony, because you might know that the Dutch embassy or the Netherlands embassy is being involved in the comprehensive sexuality education issues for long. We started our portfolio on sexual and reproductive health rights since 2010. So it's been a long journey for us, and many of our projects has been involved in implementing the CSE. I would refrain myself from commenting on the content of this book that Kotha and PPRC is launching today, because our other discussant has done that, and I'm sure that they are much more proficient in doing that because they are very much involved in rendering this type of CSE curriculum. Samyapa and Saraban both are involved in Netherlands funded projects. So they also know that a couple of our programs has been implementing comprehensive sexuality education, like Me and My World, like the GEMS curriculum by Unfpa and its partners. So, and our projects were all like consortium projects. So we have been involved with many organizations, and our organizations and partners were working in the rural and semi-urban areas. So I'm very happy to see that there is something now for the English medium schools also, because that is one thing that I was feeling that we are lacking, because our intervention was much more in the schools and colleges and madrasas in the rural area mostly. So it will be very helpful to render this curriculum through the peers in the school, in the English medium school, and I think you are also targeting the Bangla mediums as well. So because our intervention were in, I will say, like more than 900 or 1,000 schools, different projects has intervened, and Me and My World, GEMS were implemented firstly by peer educators, rather lately because we look into the sustainability of this intervention, and then teachers were trained, and teachers are now providing these lessons in the classes. And our projects, with the support from the embassy, we also are advocating with the government. So this curriculum, the comprehensive sexuality education curriculum, should be sustainable, should be mainstream in the general curriculum. You might know that the GEMS curriculum is already been implemented by DISHI, the Department of Higher and Secondary Education in the Ministry of Education, and government has confirmed that it will be implemented all through the country in all schools and madrasas. We shouldn't forget about the madrasas as well, because these are the organizations who sometimes lack the life skill type of educations, but we found that madrasas are much more like collaborative and much more ready to take this type of curriculum. Through our intervention, because you might know that not only the embassy is implementing SRHR projects, but also directly from the Netherlands, there are many support coming as direct funded projects like this right here, right now, and others I can mention. So these projects are also contributing in bringing attention to the comprehensive sexuality education. Saraban has already mentioned that, and through the presentation by Kotha and our young generation has been doing last hours, I can see that it is rightly embedded in the feminist diaspora, and that is really, really important, because we are seeing since long this gender-based violence is happening, and it is increasing day by day. So it will be very timely and appropriate to do this type of intervention, and this book will certainly support our girls and boys, especially boys. I will say that we have to include the boys much more in this type of intervention, and give them the understanding that why respect is a main theme in the relationship that they build up since this teenage time. So thanks to Kotha, thanks to PPRC, and those everyone that contributed in developing this book and launching it and bringing it to the different schools and colleges. And also, like, I will just bring the issue of, like, we have to look into the sustainability part. And because the peer educators who will be rendering this curriculum will be graduating. So we have to find out a way that this keeps on going, that the new students will be also receiving this. So I will request you to look into that. I'm sure you will be doing that, how to sustain this initiative. Also working in the schools, working with the teachers and the headmasters and the community. Like, we are saying that this approach has to be family-based and community-based. We can't leave anyone out of it. So bring everyone in the context of comprehensive sexuality, and then providing information to the young people who can internalize that, who can share with their peers, their parents, and their teachers, and then they can become the productive citizens of Bangladesh and contribute to the development of Bangladesh. So we are looking forward to achieving the sustainable goals, like we did the Millennium Goals. So this is the right time to initiate this type of intervention, and also to coordinate and collate what has been already done. I am really proud to provide you the information that many of our projects has been doing CSE. So please collaborate with them. You can learn from them, and then you can also become richer with your intervention.
Absolutely. Thank you so
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we will move on to Farin Dalla, founder and president, One Circle BD. You will have 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Farin Dalla.
I don't see her in the participant list. Farin Dalla, are you here? If not, we'll just give her maybe a couple of seconds. If you're here, you could write to us through chat and we can unmute you. All right, let's move on to the next segment, Aisha.
Yes, now we will be introducing our policymakers present here, who will be discussing how we can build the momentum on CSE in Bangladesh. We will start with Asa Torkelsson, who happens to be the representative of Bangladesh, Unfpa. You will have 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dear all respected change makers, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to you all. Thank you for inviting me to this launching ceremony on behalf of Unfpa Bangladesh. I'm humbled. Congratulations on this achievement. I have learned a lot from you during the past hour and so, and I wish there had been an initiative like this when I grew up. But first of all, I would like to say that I know that COVID-19 has taken a particularly severe toll on young people. Many of your aspirations have been stalled and they have been parked. And in this context, even more so, this initiative is so great to have progressed and grown in spite of the challenges and against the ever-increasing needs for this type of solution to be rolled out. Thank you all. From Unfpa, we are the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency. Our mandate is to ensure that every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled. We are also working towards ensuring that there will be the elimination of gender-based violence. For us, life skills education is crucial in enabling young people to protect your health, well-being, and dignity, and also bring solutions to end gender-based violence. And by now, personally, having by now become an older woman with grown-up children, I am ever the more humble that you invite me to say a few words in this important occasion. I am in deep admiration of your work and of initiatives such as this. You are providing exactly the changes the world needs, one action at a time. And this training manual, the Peer Education Manual launched today, is a key step in that right direction. Clearly, youth leading the change can expedite further the needed changes. I recall personally, and then I can see that youth are tremendously inspired and trusting of other youth. Youth influence each other. This said, the work you are doing is cascading changes effectively. And you are inspiring me. Indeed, there is a huge vacuum of knowledge to be filled that can also easily be filled by other motivators. And your work allowing youth to embark on a healthy pathway of their own sexuality and for girls to be able to exercise bodily autonomy is essential to creating a safe and thriving Bangladesh for all. At UNFPA, we agree that comprehensive sexuality education is one of the effective long-term solutions towards yielding women's empowerment and gender equality and release gender-based violence from its firm grip, which is slow to change. And this famous needle, it has to shift. And in addition to creative solutions, you have the energy needed to bring about this change. Some of it, I recognize, emanates from a point of rage, a point of pain, which resonates in me too, especially the younger I, the pain of exclusion, the pain of discrimination, and the pain of being left behind. Having that pain be a stepping stone for creative solutions, such as the one presented here today, is the way to go. The way the world will transform and heal and will become what we, you, us, want it to be and what it must be, how we will build back better. Dear change makers, at the global level, UNFPA has called for greater investments in adolescents and for putting youth at the forefront of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals agenda. We need to provide young people with health, education, and skills to become actively engaged in society and economy as youth leaders. In Bangladesh, we ensure our continued support to the government of Bangladesh in delivering life skills education and sexual and reproductive health edutainment materials across schools in Bangladesh, explained also in detail by the development partner from the Netherlands embassy just before me. And delivering on these investments is key, as Bangladesh is presented with a unique opportunity also to reap the famous demographic dividend. Estimates show that when we invest $1 in life skills education of young people, or 1 taka, it is projected to bring a $15 or 15 taka return, so multiplied by 15. And through our flagship project, the Generation Breakthrough, together with the government and with support from our partners, we ensure young people know and understand their sexual and reproductive health and rights. More importantly, to stand up against discriminatory gender norms and gender-based violence. Generation Breakthrough also builds the capacities of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs to deliver comprehensive life skills education, and based on the success of the first phase, and as was mentioned, the government is now planning to invest in expanding it through all secondary institutes across the country. So we also need your ideas to progress our work further, and I look forward to hearing more from you. I picked up some of the amazing quotes that you were sharing in some of the conversations before. I heard one of you say, with unstoppable enthusiasm, yes, I get the knowledge. I want to be the middleman. Someone else said, we are talking about to the lesser chosen, and we talk about the lesser talked about things. And these kind of models of courage are sitting squarely with our UNFPA mandate. And I want to recognize that change is really a slow process, almost for an individual, almost impossible sometimes, even at the personal level. And I think that for it to happen, I believe that we need either to be deeply repelled by the current situation or powerfully attracted by a future imagined state. I believe that the youth movement that I'm hearing now is driven by both, with the objective to create a Bangladesh specific for the youth, by the youth, to ensure a resilient, agile, thriving Bangladesh, where every young person can live in dignity and safety. It will require the individual and collective effort and also willingness to change of each and every one of us, policy level, institutional level, and community level. We and I stand by you in building further a better future in Bangladesh for all. Thank you, and Shubaike Donabat.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to come in and give a special thanks to Asa. I know this work is also very dear to your heart, and it means so much to us for you being present, to listening to our words, and giving us the strength by being here with us. So I just want to give you a personal thanks.
Thank you very much. Now we will be hearing from Shaheen Alam. Shaheen Alam, Executive Director, Manusher Jonno Foundation. You will get 10 minutes, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. সবাইকে অনেক অনেক শুভেচ্ছা। আমাকে এখানে কিছু বলার জন্য, ডাকার জন্য। Thank you for inviting me. Asha, I enjoyed listening to you. First of all, my impression is that it's time for us to retire, actually. When I see the work of these young, people, the kind of work they're doing, coming up with new innovative ideas, strategies to address issues that we have been struggling with for so many decades. And no, I'm saying it in a positive way, that we feel confident that we can hand over the work that we have been doing, hand it over for you people to carry on. So my heartiest congratulations on the work that you're doing. I'm filled with pride when I see that how young people, both men and women, girls and boys, are breaking so many barriers, so many myths, so many stereotypes, to forge ahead and create a world that is equal, that is respectful of each other, that builds on harmony, that promotes social cohesion and social harmony. I'm really so happy to be here. আজকে যে কাজ যে বই তোমরা লঞ্চ করেছো, it is so important. There's the importance of comprehensive sexual education cannot be overemphasized. I would like to say here that not allowing comprehensive sexual education in our schools and colleges is the biggest hypocrisy that is going on at the moment, because young people do access information on sex from all kinds of different mediums, which are not always uh, the most, I would say, giving the right information, uh, and not enabling them to how to use that information properly. So there is such a big gap on the kind of information they receive and how they process that information. And they end up in various, I would say, negative behaviors and practices that has an impact on violence against women and girls. So it is so much directly related in the way that they receive information and in the way they use those information for both men and boys. So again, I would like to emphasize that the kind of work that you are doing is critical, and I do hope that the relevant authorities would take note of it and expand it everywhere to all our public schools and all our education institutions. Sorry, I need to mute my phone. So having said that, I saw the manual. আমি একটু বাংলায়ও বলতে চাই যে আমি ম্যানুয়ালটা দেখেছি, এখানে এত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, এত ইনফরমেটিভ যে, as Asha said that she learned a lot, I learned so much, and I want to continue to learn from you people, because আমি মনে করি we are still stuck in our generation where we think of sex as taboo, that we think that, you know, talking about it publicly is not the nice thing to do. Nice girls don't talk about sex, you know, publicly. They don't discuss it. They hide their feeling, they hide their sexuality. That is the stereotype. So most of all, a myth gulo bhangte hobe. We have to break the myth that has kept us, I would say, in captivity for years and years and years. The fact that women, girls also need to express their sexuality has to be understood, as do boys. And we heard, I'm sorry I could not be here right from the beginning, but I heard some of the young people expressing that where is the platform for them to come and talk about these issues, the difficult issues they can confront as they are growing up, as, you know, their bodies are changing, as they, you know, are facing different kind of challenges. So most importantly, if they don't discuss this openly, where will that respect for each other come? The understanding about each other come? কোথায় থেকে আসবে আমরা যদি এই বিষয়গুলো সহজভাবে না নেই? আরেকটা হলো যে age specific education, that what is good for like a 15-year-old girl or boy to know is not maybe appropriate for an 8-year-old to know. So how do we process and give those information which is age appropriate? That is also very important. You know, some of you have said that, and I was reading with a lot of interest, যে এইসব education বাচ্চাদেরকে sex করতে শিখাচ্ছে. These are the myths that we have to be broken, that has to be broken, that it gives too much information. তখন ছেলে মেয়েরা সেক্স নিয়ে খুব মানে সহজ হয়ে যাবে, তখন সেক্সুয়াল অ্যাক্টে ওরা আরো বেশি নেমে যাবে। এগুলো মিথ আছে, কিন্তু it is so, মানে কি বলবো, so wrong. It is just the opposite, that when young girls and boys get the right information, then only then they will be able to use those information with responsibility. That is the key word, to use these information with responsibility and make sure that it is age appropriate. You know, our experience from grassroots level, we have found what horrific sexual violence young married girls experience, those who have been married before 18, or even 18, I don't believe is the right age, but anyway, that's the legal age of married girls, they experience from their husbands because of the kind of sex information they receive from pornography, from, all kinds of perverted, mediums, from social media, from YouTube, or whatever, from others. And it has directly impacted on the violence of young women and young girls. So, while we can condemn these young men from acting those way, but actually they know no better, to be very honest. One is, of course, a kind of perversion, but that is, if we take the norm, everybody is not perverted. All young boys and men are not perverted, but they don't know, they don't have the right information, they don't know how to use it. So Umama and Kotha, your team, I really congratulate you for the work you're doing. I'm just so delighted, and as Asha said, humbled actually, to learn from you, to know more about these issues. And please engage with us. We don't have your knowledge, but we have years of experience in working with different groups of people, different groups, from marginalized group to people with disability, to women who change special challenges, to young women. I'm just coming from a meeting that I was moderating, and Asha knows about it. We collaborated, Unfpa, UNICEF, Manusher Jonno Foundation, and Plan, to do a rapid assessment of child marriage in Bangladesh during the COVID period. And, the information is so unfortunate. We found in the areas that 13,000 plus child marriage took place. So what is going to happen to them? What is going to happen to these girls? Do they know how to handle this situation? No. Do they have any information, any knowledge, any support? Once they're married, okay, they're finished, married, gone. We don't have to take. Now we have to talk about the girls who are not married, and support them. But what about supporting the girls who are already married? They're also adolescent. They're also young girls. They don't know what to do. So there's so much work for us. These girls are out of school because they're married. So who's going to support them? How will they get the information? So there are so many issues on these, concerns and challenges that, I think young people in our kind of society have to face. Finally, I will end by saying, as Asha also said, and many others, that creating and enabling a healthy environment for our young boys and girls is absolutely critical to the future of Bangladesh. There's absolutely no doubt. We don't want to create a big force, a big group of young boys and girls who behave in ways that is antisocial, that is violent, that is not in harmony with nature, with people, with everyone of different generations. So with that, I would like to end. আমি এখানেই শেষ করছি। ওমানা এবং টিমকে আরো আবার ধন্যবাদ জানিয়ে এবং আমার অভিনন্দন জানিয়ে। Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now we will move on to Dr. Hossain Zillur Rahman, Executive Chairman of PPRC, on the importance of innovation in CSE advocacy. Thank you.
So much. And thanks to Asa and Shaheen also for joining this important event. I'm giving this thanks because we, as PPRC, we were very happy to provide a sort of from behind a bit of logistic and administrative support perhaps to this exercise. One thing I realized throughout the whole session is that maturity is not a function of age. I think that was driven home in a particularly dramatic way. I saw the content, the Kotha school experience, the booklet, the manual, the way the conversation was participated in by Kotha's team as well as the others, all showed such levels of maturity in terms of clarity on what is being done, why it is being done, and how to go about it. I think that's really teaching us a lot of things. So again, congratulations to Kotha, Umama, Mayabi, Sharika, and all the others, Aisha, and everyone else who have done a fantastic and amazing job on this whole, not just the manual itself, but the experience which led up to this manual. I echo everything that Asa and Shaheen said. And by the way, Shaheen, there is no scope for retiring because we have to do our last bit of helping hands. We have to continue with that. So there is no scope for retiring here. Even though the driver's seat, certainly we shall get out of the driver's seat, but we cannot retire, maybe move into the helper seat. But it has to be a continuous process. And I want to basically, again, say that this is a wonderful job done. অত্যন্ত ভালো একটা কাজ হয়েছে। এই কাজের গুরুত্ব নানাভাবে, it is, I think, multiple. You mentioned, I think, the Kotha school presentation mentioned about 3 SDG, where this work was relevant. But I think it is perhaps relevant to all the SDGs in a way, because it is talking about empowering youth, and youth actually lies at the heart of all the SDGs, in every single one of them. And this empowering youth, these words that we use, demographic dividend, etc., এগুলোকে মানে achieve করতে হলে, if we want to really make them real, not just words in our textbooks or in our policy documents, it's important that we go to that. I mean, the word last mile challenge was used by Umama, and also I think it was used by Mayabi. It's not a technical language. I think the last mile challenge, that particular word, it is mentioning about a particular problem of our societies and in the current world, in the whole development agenda, is that there may be initiatives, there may be projects, there may be so many policy announcements. But at the end of the day, none of these matters if they haven't brought out a change, actually change in the ground for those who are where it is intended. So the last mile challenge is a particular way of mentioning that our concern is with outcomes. Our concern is with changing those ground realities, not just but taking the initiative itself. So I think that's a great way of, in a way, formulating the challenge. Samia and others mentioned about, and I think it is true that we need to link up with the policymakers, etc. But I see the value of this manual at 2 levels. One is, and not just the manual itself, but the Kotha as a journey, if I look at it that way. One is, really you are touching on a pedagogic revolution. We are, আমাদের মতো দেশে শিক্ষা মানেই হচ্ছে মুখস্থ বিদ্যা. This has been our inherited culture actually. And even comprehensive sexuality education ও কিন্তু মুখস্থ বিদ্যা হয়ে যেতে পারে, কারণ গভর্নমেন্টের পলিসি আছে, বইয়ের মধ্যে আরেকটা চ্যাপ্টার লেখা হলো, কে পড়লো কি পড়লো না ভিন্ন কথা, 10 মার্ক পেয়ে গেলাম, কাজ হয়ে গেল, এটাই, এইখানে হয়তো আমরা থেমে গেলাম। এই যে মুখস্থ বিদ্যা থেকে সরে আসতে পারাটা, যে exchange of views, shared learning এর whole ideata, this pedagogic revolution, I think, is very, very critical. And I'm, you have done a specific task here, which is a manual on CSE for the youth. But I see it has resonance for this larger challenge for our education system of how we get away from this mukhasto vidya and make education and learning. Education has to be learning. এখন education হয়ে গেছে, it's a certificate, or that I went to school for so many years. Learning, we have to bring back education to actual learning. And I think this manual, in the way you have put it up, it's so important. And I think what has impressed me also so much is that the knowledge has been broken up into specific elements which matters. How you'll set up the class context, how we will conduct the AJ. Mayabi said that she loved the slide on the 10 chapters. Those 10 chapters, actually, this sort of a breaking up it into specific knowledge is so critical. And I think that's this pedagogic thing is very, very critical. That's a great takeaway from me. The other one, and ekhane ami, all those who are present in this session today, including our eminent policymakers, Asa and Shaheen and Samia and all others, I think there is an issue here, collective agenda concern about how we imagine engagement. I think this is also very important. Engagement is not just working to get a policy document. And I think in Bangladesh context, সবচেয়ে বড় যে ইস্যুটা is how do you build momentum? Building momentum is what I see is our major challenge. So I will encourage Kotha and all the young people present in this session today. Don't be too much bothered whether the policymakers have listened to you or not. Forget about them. You have come this far because they were not the first audience you were thinking about. Think about the audience at hand. Think about how you are going to build the momentum. And policymakers will come to you in due course. And you have been, I think, very clever also, isn't it, Umama, that you have been touching with NCTB and other relevant. Policymakers is also, when you say policymakers, we have a tendency to think of the minister and the secretary as completing our image of the policymakers. Policymaking is a process. It's not a one wall. There are hundreds and thousands of entry points where you need to engage, where you can engage, where by engaging you can build a momentum. So I would encourage you, let's not get too worried. Did policymakers listen to us? They have to listen to you if they actually are real policymakers. That's where we have to take the whole situation to. Because you are doing the right thing. And if they want to do the right thing, they have to come and listen to you and become, perhaps, sit in the backbench and listen to you, rather than come and give a sort of pronouncement. So I would not take more time. It has been a great pleasure. And I think PPRC has been, very, I would say, fortunate also to be able to, in a way, have an association with this whole exercise and the potential windows it is going to open up. I'm absolutely certain that the momentum part of it, building a momentum, and I think another word that Umama used is also very important. Our policymakers also need to learn that. The word is ecosystem. Means that at the end of the day, bringing a change on the ground has so many parts to it. The manual is a critical part. The actual experimentation is a very important part. I was so impressed to hear the person from Rajshahi, who has been activated by your initiative also. And there are perhaps hundreds and thousands of others waiting to get connected, waiting to ignite their own energy and their own effort to create a better society, the type of society that we want to create, and let the society that we want to create, let not that be defined by one pronouncement. Let that be a shared creation of a dream. Because once we have these conversations of trust, we will create that shared dream and also find the pathways to realize that dream. Anyway, I will stop there. Congratulations to everyone. Thank you to everyone, all those who joined. It's a wonderful journey. It is going to go great places. It is, I think society needs to take note and use this energy which has been unleashed for its own benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your valuable input. Now we're at the very end of our session. This has been a delight. So we would like to hear our last words from Umama, the life of Kotha. Please, Umama, take the stage.
That's a big word to use. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you to everybody that joined us, that has stayed till now and listened to all the speakers that came and shared their views and their own experiences, and for sharing your thoughts on the work that we've done and opened up spaces where we can work together. So I would just again like to thank the three policymakers who were here with us, Asa, Hossain Zillur Rahman, and Shaheen Alam. Thank you so much to our discussants, Samiapa, Mushfikapa, and Sarbonapu. It meant so much to us to hear from you what your thoughts were on our booklet, and for everybody else who has been engaging in the chat. We've been reading all of them and trying to get back. It is truly a great and exciting day for us to see so many of our friends and colleagues joined here to hear about this work. I'm surprised, but quite impressed that we're good on time. We were supposed to end by 1. We started, I think, 10 minutes late. So I will wrap up as soon as I can in the next 2 minutes. I just again want to touch on the issue of expanding areas of youth engagement that I had in my very first presentation. So everybody that you heard from today on behalf of Kotha, whether it was Arya, who's currently a grade 8 student who presented on Kotha at school, or Mayabi and Sharika, who led the entire project and whose hard work, without which it wouldn't have been possible to create this booklet, who are fresh high school graduates or young university students. And throughout Kotha's work, we've really tried to make sure that young people are placed at every step of the process of building something and creating something. So from delivering the content as peer educators in the classroom, to designing a booklet, to hosting these events, to sharing with policymakers, we really wanted that it would have young people from different generations at the heart of the conversation, not at the heart and in leading positions and in every step of the process again. So I think we really, I do see a lot of hesitation with giving up that space to young people and only giving them very, a very narrow scope of engagement where we only ask them for input or only have them over for 1 or 2 youth consultations. So I think this work really shows to all of us that the engagement needs to happen on a much broader, more comprehensive scope. And with that, I think I would like to end here now. Once again, I will just like to thank my team. As I mentioned, that they've been putting in so much hard work And there was a lot of good learning that we took away from this, and a lot of the comments that came in will definitely be taking those into account in our work in the future. This booklet will be available online. We will be sharing it with all the participants at this event, as well as other youth organizations who will find this beneficial. So we hope to do that soon in the upcoming week. And again, thank you so much to my team. I'm so proud of all of you. And I think a big round of applause to all of us for pulling this off. Thank you to all our guests.